Chapter 13 I was born, Antoinette said, on a small farm in New Jersey. My mother's name is Pearl, and my grandmother, she's a human, but she once adopted my mother. So my grandmother's Mrs. Jones, Mrs. Ariana Jones. Mrs. Jones, she said, is Casey Jones and Pamela Jones' aunt. Pamela Jones? I said. Angelhoff. Pamela Jones Angelhoff. Though actually, she grinned at me, my mother calls her the Ked. The Ked? She's a big sneaker. And exactly what did she sneak? Why, Sandy, of course. She upped and snuck him cleanly out of his cradle. He was only 11 weeks. Ariana called it adoption, but my mother called it a sneak. She was inconsolably furious. I can imagine, I said. No, you can't. It was absolutely disgusting what my mother did. The next Christmas, she bit Pamela. The next Easter, she bit her twice and told Felix to spit the... Felix? Sandy's twin. Sandy's twin? His identical twin. Yes, of course. Didn't you know? Why, in fact, she said, the two of them are just so identical that after Sandy was famous, Ariana woke up and got Felix the same agent. Selma Giggly, I said. Yes. She looked startled. How on earth did you know about Selma? He's a detective, Sue reminded her. There's nothing he doesn't know. Except the story, I added quickly. Please get on with it, Antoinette. Antoinette, who'd been posturing on the stage of a lumpy pillow, turned a hard eye on Sue and said, Eventually, she died. Who died? I said. Oh, Ariana. She left a will, and in the will, she left Pamela and Casey a lot of money. What's a lot? I said. A lot's about 20,000 apiece. And then, of course, kindest of all, she left each of them with a cat, I said triumphantly. Exactly, she said. Yes. Meaning Felix was sent to Casey. Meaning Pamela, who also got the jewelry, got me. Lucky Pamela, Sue intruded. I shot her a pointed look, and turned benignly to Antoinette. Okay, I said. So Casey got the cat and a bundle of bread. Oh, but he didn't get the bread. Pamela, I forget what the word for it is exactly, but she got herself a lawyer, and the lawyer got her the money. The whole $40,000. Uh-huh, I said, thinking I'd arrived at the basic motive. Have they talked to each other since? Oh, yes, she said, once. About, a couple of months ago, Casey came to the house and he asked could he borrow money. And he said he was making a movie, and he needed about $10,000 to rent equipment. I looked up, and she turned him down. They had a terrible, terrible fight. Mrs. Angelhoff told him he had no business in show business. She told him he had absolutely no trace of talent. She said Sandy's a better actor, and she laughed, and she said Sandy's better paid for his acting, too. I bet that went over big. I remember he threw a lamp. Were it I, James was back again, I think I'd have thrown a fit. Here you are, my love. He passed a little pizza crust through the bars. I stopped to warm it up in the oven. It looks eaten, she said. Well, I had to lick off a couple of coffee grounds. I may have eaten a bite, but I was riveted by your story. I'm confused, I said. There's one part of the puzzle that doesn't fit. If she got the 40,000, but she spent it to buy a house. It's a beach house. It's dreadful. Have you ever been to the beach? It's like a day in a stupid litter box. It's sand, sand, sand. I ignored her and carried on. The final question is... Mary Beth. Sue was adamant. A Miss Mary Beth to Spain. You ever heard of her, Antoinette? Antoinette had her teeth around a portion of pepperoni and wasn't about to be rushed. She chewed carefully, 7 times. Then she carefully drank some water. Then she carefully licked her lips. Then she carefully scratched her head. "I believe," she said eventually, "she was Casey's fiancée." "Fiancée?" I said. "Was" appears to be the operative word. She broke up with him, I gather. I believe she adopted Felix." Antoinette yawned theatrically. "I believe I would like to sleep. So if all of you would just kindly—" "Hold it," I said. "Listen. Tomorrow, Antoinette, Mrs. Angelhoff is likely to get a very important call." "From the kidnapper," James injected. "It's important to listen in." But I was already losing her. She'd settled into her pillow now and started to fall asleep. "Antoinette?" I said. She opened one terrible golden eye. "Try and listen," I said sharply, "and report to me what you hear. Your brother's life could hang in the balance." For an answer, she closed the eye.